It's kind of cool that Brittany gets to lead in this song, because I kind of know a little bit of a backdrop of what's been going on in her world and her life. And I just thought, you know, you've got to know these lyrics are for real. When he speaks and he moves, he does what only he can do. And that line about fears and tears. Just tell them just a little bit what's transpired. It's been like a week, just something crazy.
Tuesday.
Yeah, tell them what happened. It's kind of cool.
So I've always had a passion of working with kids with special needs. Right now I'm a manager at Starbucks and I'm on a path to promotion. And I got up for work the other day and Brandon dropped a truth bomb on me and he was like, why are you working so hard in a career that your heart's not in? I know you want to work with kids with special needs. I know you want to go to school for that, but you're working so hard to promote that you don't have time for school. And I just was mad at him for speaking so much truth to me that I just walked out. And I prayed all the way to work that morning. And I'm standing, the little girl that I nanny, I take her to school every day. She's a special needs child. And I take her to school at Behavioral Transformations in Rockwall. And that's where I want to work. That's where I've always wanted to work. So I was standing in the drive-thru at work, cashing people out, and a lady comes through the drive-thru wearing a jacket that has the Behavioral Transformations logo on it. And I was like, I just want to let you know that I appreciate what you do, and one day I want to be where you're at, and I thank you for everything that you've done for Alyssa. She goes, I actually own all 3 locations of Behavioral Transformations. She said, here's my card, send me your resume. I said, okay, gotcha. So I got off work, typed up an email, and I sent her my resume. I said, as promised, here it is. And less than 24 hours later, I had an interview and I was hired.
He does what only he can do. Yeah. If you'll seek him. You know, so our hearts are that you'll press into him today, that you'll seek him. Because that's what he does. He makes himself known. And he loves you. You're his kids. He cares about you. He put it on Brandon's heart to challenge his wife about going to work, doing something you don't love. Pursue what you love. God miraculously has that lady drive up to the drive-in, start a conversation, and within the week, hired. And yeah, praise God. Thanks for sharing. I want to read to you from Psalm 23 this morning. This is it's kind of the passage where we got the name Stillwater. Some of you know the story, some of you don't. I was at another church for 8 years. And, well, I was going to read about mine. I was at another church for 8 years. And the Lord was clearly leading our family away. I was trying to figure out what God had for me. I went to, was headed with my family to 2 churches up in Pennsylvania to candidate. And on the way there, I was praying, God, what do you want me to do? And I had this thought, I really believe it was from the Lord, about possibly starting something. There's a lot of pieces to that caused me to think that way. Anyhow, traveling up on Highway 81, headed to Pennsylvania, and I came to where I was asking the Lord for a name. Like, Lord, if you wanted us to start a church, would you give us a name? Outdoor name. I wanted an outdoor name. For those of you who don't know, I have we have 6 kids, and they're named Hunter and Trapper and Fisher and Tanner and Natalie Brooke, and we have Hannah. We're not sure why we had Hannah. No, I don't mean it that way. Why we named her Hannah. The others are all outdoorsy. So anyhow, we're driving through on Highway 81, and I was thinking about this passage from Psalm 23, where the Lord leads us beside Stillwater. Because I didn't have a job, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. 6 kids are in the rearview mirror, my bride's to my right, and I felt such peace, I really did. I felt like God's just leading us beside Stillwater. And so he just impressed that upon my heart as I was praying, Lord, if you wanted to start a work, give us an outdoor name. And so Stillwater just kind of settled in my spirit. I leaned back to Hannah and I said, hey, if God would have us start a church, do you like the name Stillwater? She goes, Dad, I really like that. So I want to read to you this passage. Psalm 23. David's writing and he says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You can take that home right there. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still or quiet or refreshing waters. He restores my soul, guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through, and some of you are here right now, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. I kind of feel like that right now. I feel like my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness or mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Today, the topic is about the Lord is our shepherd. So I wanted to read that passage to you from Psalm 23. The Lord has been so faithful to me personally and to our family. I've seen his faithfulness. He has been such a great shepherd to us, to guide, to lead, to begin this work here at Stillwater, and to sustain it. What a good shepherd he has been. Amen?
Amen.
He really has been. Told you I'm an outdoors guy from Pennsylvania. I love hunting, fishing, trapping, you name it, anything to do with the outdoors. I was thinking about this message today, and I was thinking about whenever you're hunting, you get this little book, a little hunting manual, and it tells you, you got kind of bag limits, it's called. Like how many deer, how many doe, how many buck. If you go fishing, in Pennsylvania we're allowed 6 trout. You couldn't have 7, only 6. There was kind of like a bag limit of fish that you can take. I started thinking about that. It's like, it seems like almost everything has limits. You ever think about that? It's like everything has limits. Like right out here in front of us on in Princeton Road, there's speed limits, right? You go out on 190, there's going to be a speed limit. Some of you found out that there's speed limits out there. So you know about that. There's only so far you can go on a gallon of gas, right? There's a limit to that. There's a limit to how many push-ups you can do, depending on how fit you are. Some of you can do more than others, but there is a limit, right, of how many push-ups you can do. You found that there's a limit to how much money you can make and how far that money will go. There's a limit before you're extending what you have. There's a limit to how far you can throw a ball. If you're an athlete, there are limits and restrictions. How far, how high, how fast. There's limits to how long you can stay awake before you get tired. I'm hoping you can make it at least through the message. But there are limits. At some point you just get exhausted and you got to sleep. There are limits to how far you can go. There's limits to how far you can go without eating, and so on. It seems like there's almost limits to everything. I want us to consider this morning about your level of love and how limited is your love. Think about it. If we were to talk about someone from North Korea, you might have a certain limit of which you could love someone like that. Or those who belong to ISIS, who have blown up innocent people. I mean, I don't know if I can love them. Then there might be people that you hardly know, that you go, I just don't know that I don't know how much I love them. And then there are some who are closer to you and in your circles. I feel like maybe I could love them. There's some maybe even closer, some of you are even closer in your family. But there are limits. We have limits in which we'll love from our human love. Some of you, I want you to think about this morning, you've been deeply hurt by a friend or in a relationship. Once you were like, oh, we were besties, we were best friends, got along so well, loved to be together. And now we can't hardly be in the same room. I won't ask you to raise a hand, but does anybody come to mind that you once had a really strong relationship with that now is really, really strained? Most of us. Yeah, probably all of us, right? Some of you have been hurt by a family member, perhaps a sibling, maybe a parent, perhaps your spouse. Some of you said this, I can no longer love you. I'm done. I'm out, or I want you out, or get out. Some of you have experienced that. Some of you are experiencing that right now. For some of you, it's right around the corner. it's on your mind. So the question is, what is the limit of your love? I wonder if this is true. I wonder if the extent to which we have received Jesus' love is proportionate to the extent that we can extend love, or that we do extend love. Think about that. Is the level in which you have been extended love by Jesus proportionate to the level in which you extend his love? I think it is. And I'm not questioning this morning whether or not you have trusted in Jesus, because I know for a fact that many of you have given your lives to Jesus. And so you're thinking, well, I know I got God's love. And I'm not really questioning whether or not you received God's love. Romans 5:5 says that basically when you place your faith and trust in Jesus as your Savior, God has poured out his love into your hearts by his Holy Spirit. So I'm not even questioning whether or not you have God's love in you this morning. When you think about his love and you think about how limited our love is in which we love people, it's really, really different. So what I'm talking about more is that what's called sanctification, becoming more and more like Jesus. I believe God is calling you. I believe he's calling us. I believe he's calling us as a local church to extend to people an unlimited measure of love. And you cannot, and you will not, you do not have the capacity or the ability, apart from Christ living it through you, to love people like he loved. His love has no limits. The passage, if you want to, I'd like you to turn there, John 10 in your scriptures. Jesus says this, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. You cannot do something beyond laying down your life for someone else. And we're continuing in this I Am series that is filling out who Jesus is. 7 times in the book of John, he uses this phrase, I am, and he connects it with a metaphor that helps us better understand who Jesus is. John 6, Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. I sustain, I satisfy. In John 8, Jesus said, I'm the light. I'm the one who gives you guidance. I direct you. I lead your path. Last week we looked at he's the door. He's the way into life. He's the one who saves, and he's the one who delivers. He's the door. And today we read, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. We see in this phrase that his love has no limits. This phrase, and each time for the next 3 weeks, you'll see it again. You'll see it again next week. You'll see it the week after that. You'll see it as we conclude the message that following week. Every time you see the I am, it's pointing back to the conversation the messenger of the Lord had with Moses in the bush. And Moses is called to deliver the children of Israel out of bondage, and he's going, okay, when they come to me and they ask, what's the name of the person who sent you? What do I tell them? And he said, tell them I am. I am. That's recorded in Exodus chapter 3. And now we're looking at Jesus, who's left heaven, come to earth, born as a babe, lives a perfect life, and now John is proclaiming it to be true. That he's the bread, and he's the light, and he's the door. And this morning, he's the good shepherd, and a good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. His love has no limits. Jesus said, I am. And when he says I am, he goes on to say, I'm the shepherd. And when you think about shepherd, you don't think of somebody out there with who's just kind of driving sheep or being mean. You think of somebody who loves and cares and feeds and guides and protects. And so Jesus said, I'm the shepherd. But not only did he say, I'm the shepherd, I'm the good shepherd. The word is kalos. And what that means is, that word good, is what you see on the outside reflects what's in me. I'm a good shepherd. There is something in me, and it's displayed in how I live outwardly. That word, I'm the good shepherd. It's really fascinating when you look at how this is written in the original language. I got to show this to you because it's really cool. Each week in this series, when we get to the I am, where we see this phrase in the Greek language, ego, I, me. It's really fascinating in the Greek language. This just means I am. So every time Jesus is making one of these proclamations, I'm the bread, I am the bread. I am the light, and I am the door. I am the good shepherd. The next word in the Greek language has this little circle, it's called an article, and then this word poi main means the shepherd. After that, there's another one of these little circles, and the word kalos, good. Here's what's significant about this. Whenever a writer wants to make sure that you know that there's something distinct, different, exclusive, like nobody else, he puts this little article with it. It's called an articular. It's called articular. And so this article is saying he is the shepherd. And then the writer goes to the trouble, John, to say he's the good. So he's the good shepherd, the good shepherd. But he doesn't stop there. When you're looking at it in the original language, this sentence structure continues, and you see this again. Ha, poi, main, ha, kalos. I am, the shepherd, the good. The shepherd, the good. That's how it reads. And what the author is doing by these articles, right here, that's what they are, the, is saying there is no one greater, there is no one higher, there is no one like this shepherd. This shepherd stands out among all shepherds. There's not even another shepherd that comes close to this shepherd. Now get this, because what Jesus says, as he is using this to help them understand the level of his love, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. There is no greater cost, there is no great example, no greater demonstration of love than the shepherd laying down his life for the sheep. And Jesus is saying, I am that shepherd. I was thinking about that. I was thinking, man, God, I want to be that kind of shepherd. I want to be a good shepherd. I want to love. I want to lay down my life. I got to tell you something happened. I'll show you here in a minute. But October, we did this family camp out. Some of you remember. How many of you were here and participated in the family camp out? Right? A couple of you. It was a little chilly, remember? Got down in the low 30s. So that's cold here in Texas. Like for us folks in Pennsylvania, it was perfect. Well, about 2 o'clock or something like that, several of our young ladies said, is it okay if we sleep inside? So they're bringing their sleeping bags, their blankets, their pillows. We said yes. So they come in, they go in this little room back there, we set them up, made little pallets, and that's kind of where they were. It was kind of a surprising thing happened. I mean, it was kind of amazing. It took us all off guard. Some of our young men wanted to come in because it was getting cold. Whoa. Pretty funny. So now we have young ladies back here. We said, it's okay. Come on in, guys. Come on. So we set up a place in here in the worship center. Here's what I did. I got to show you. I know this is going to be hard on your neck. Okay, so right here, this was like the strategic place for me. Because we had girl sheep down the hall, and we had guy sheep in here. You started getting the picture? So here's what I said I'm going to do. And I didn't really think about this passage. I was thinking, man, we're going to keep the girls separate. So I laid down right here at the door. And it seemed like a good idea. I got to tell you what happened. I was miserable. I did not realize how many people got to go to the potty during the night. I mean, it was this constant stream of people stepping over me, and then they're coming back, and did they go in the restroom or down the hall? And I remember Dee Dee. She'll be here next week. She was sick. But I remember Dee Dee. She works with our children's ministry, and she's stepping over me. And I look up, and there's Dee Dee straddling over me. She said, I'm so sorry, Pastor. And I knew I was going to be preaching. I was exhausted. And here's why I tell you this story. Because I remember when that night was over and I hadn't slept. Girls were saved, guys were saved. All I could think of is I'll never, ever do that again. And I was serious. And I started thinking about that when I was thinking about this passage. And I was thinking about laying down your life for the sheep. And that was my best effort, right? And I had a sleeping bag and I was inside and I was inconvenienced just a little bit. But I started thinking about it. You know what? I had not been mocked. I had not been spit upon and ridiculed and beaten, paraded around in a purple robe, crown of thorns jammed on my head. I had not been ushered through 3 public illegal trials before daylight and then taken before 3 Gentile trials after daylight, only to be found guilty of things that were false accusations that I never did. I didn't do any of that. You see the point? There is no one like the good shepherd. There is no one who loves like he loves. There is no one who cares about each of you on an individual basis like he does. His love has absolutely no limits. He has spent all that he could spend on your behalf. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, he who knew no sin became sin for us, so that we could be made the righteousness of God in him. God gets to see you clean at Christ's expense through his blood shed on the cross, never committing a sin, willingly going to a cross for you. This is hard for us to comprehend, but I want you to think with me for just a moment. Just try to imagine. What would it be like to be Jesus in heaven? Perfect environment, everything's cool with your Father, there you are. And you come to earth as a babe, and you grow, and then you live this perfect life, never doing anything wrong, never talking back to your parents, only handling every friendship just in the right way. All your actions are perfect, come from pure motives, only to find yourself falsely accused, betrayed, denied, those you were closest to all bailed and abandoned. What would it be like to be gone through all the punishment that he went through? And think about this, because here's the reality. He took it for you. He took it for me. Every bonehead decision I ever made, he had to pay for it. Every screw up, every dumb decision, every fallen thing that I've chosen to do or that happened to me, he already paid for. Wow. His love has no limits. What he does is he contrasts this. I am, ha poimen, ha kalos, ha poimen, ha kalos. I am the good shepherd, it's contrasted. This guy lays down his life for the sheep. Now let's talk about our love. It's a human love. All kind of limits. He paints an incredible picture for us. Look at it. John 10:12-13. The hired hand is not the shepherd, does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. What a contrast. See, the hired hand is not bought in. He's been hired. He's there for a paycheck. It's a selfish means to a selfish end. He's just taking care of himself. It's his job. He has to do it to provide for himself. He doesn't have any skin in the game here for the sheep. This is all about him. That's the lens he's thinking through. Very selfish, very self-centered. How can I take care of me? The hireling, I put it this way, he could be tending cats, dogs, pigs, or frogs, because to him it doesn't matter. It's really not about them. He doesn't care about them. He's just a hired hand. It's just a job. And so I want to make just a few observations for you. When you're thinking about your love, does your love have limits? Because God's love doesn't have any limits. And he's placed that love in you. Now let's look at our human love. What happened here in this passage we just looked at. Human love does this. It flees potential harm. Some of you have done that. Some of you are doing that. Some of you are considering right now fleeing just to get away from potential harm. You want to save your own skin. We abandon friendships when we get hurt. We abandon friendships when we think we're going to get hurt. Oh, I can't go to that service, so-and-so might be there. Or I can't even go to that church. Some of you have to go to different, you're here because you were hurt somewhere else. Some of you had these really close friends and something happened, and now because of this potential, it's sometimes even just potential hurt, we flee to save our own skin. It happens in marriages all the time. I could ask these young people, we could hear stories. It's happening all the time. I can't take that chance again. I can't get hurt again. I don't want to go through that again. We run, we abandon. I see this all the time. I see it family unit after family unit. In fact, we're witnessing it even now, right in our midst, in this church family, right now. Not just one, not just two, but for multiple families, right now, at this very crossroads I speak of. Tragedy after tragedy. And I hear this, oh, well, man, kids are resilient. Kids are resilient. I promise you, I think we say kids are resilient, somehow make ourselves feel better. Because I can tell you, Brandon can tell you, Jared can tell you, any of us who work with middle school, they are resilient. But can I tell you that pain runs really, 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 really deep. We have this analogy of a hireling. And into potential harm, the hireling runs. He has a limited love. He has no skin in the game. I got to get out of this. And that's what he does. And at the expense of others. I would ask you to humble yourself and join the hundreds and thousands of others who realize just how broken we are. We can't do it on our own, apart from Christ's love. We need the community of faith. We need the support. And that doesn't mean every marriage is going to be restored. What it means is you can't change your spouse, but you can allow God to change your heart and how you handle the situation, because His love is limitless. I want to talk for just a moment about how this plays out in a local church, because can I tell you, this analogy in the hired hand really fits the local church. Satan is wreaking havoc in local churches. He's running rampant through local churches, purposing to shred them, to divide them, to shatter and scatter sheep at the very potential of being hurt. Sheep abandoned. They go. The shepherds abandon the sheep, and there they are. The sheep are left to their own. Happens all the time. I've been astonished over the years. Our human love is so limited, and when we operate out, we go into self-preservation mode, much like the hireling. We neglect sheep. We abandon sheep. They end up getting hurt. I've been astounded at how that's happened here. I've been astounded at my own shortcomings. Out of fear of possible rejection, failing to call and follow up with people who left. Man, has God chastened me this week. What limit of love are you living out of, Kurt?
Right.
What limit of love? My love is unlimited, Kurt. It has no end, Kurt. Our human love has limits. And what we see with our human love is it results in pure devastation. Did you see it? When he sees the wolf coming, speaking of the hireling, the hired hand, the guy who's paid to do his job, when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. And then the wolf attacks the flock and he scatters it. This happens in work environments. Pride gets in the way, power gets in the way, anger sets in, bitterness sets in, division sets in. It happens in parenting, between parents and their kids. It happens in sibling relationships. It happens in marriages. Satan just wants to get a little foothold, create a little bit of division, throw in a little pride, a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of anger, and all of a sudden, you're not operating out of God's unlimited love. Now the limited love fears and it flees and it brings pure devastation. Satan loves to do this. I put it this way. Satan loves to shatter and scatter sheep. Over the years, I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. I've seen several shepherds, some who were on staff, some who were lay folks who were coming, going for different reasons, but who shepherded sheep. And what I have seen, and this wouldn't just be true for me, this would be true if you talk to other pastors. When they have somebody who has shepherded sheep, and they're pressed into God's love, and they're making a transition for whatever reason and doing it in God's love, there's hardly a sheep that gets stirred. But I've seen it. I have seen it where a shepherd, lay pastor, or pastor gets hurt, something happens. They abandon the sheep, and the sheep are left. And there's such hurt, and there's such pain, and there's such confusion. And I said this last week, and I want to say it again. If you ever have the privilege here to shepherd, if it's a small group of girls as small as 2, or young men, 2 or 4, or it's 2 or 20, or 200, if God ever allows you to be in that place to shepherd people, I repeat, do not bail because of potential pain and hurt. Do not allow sheep to be scattered. Don't allow sheep to be shattered. I would encourage you to press into Christ and let his love lead you. I think about our friend Brett Gilpatrick, who was the latest of staff, served here faithfully. Talked to him last week for about 45 minutes. He's doing incredibly well. God is opening doors in that young man's life. He's still helping us advance our cause here. He made this graphics you'll see coming down the road. Brett's making those, helping us with our web. He preached here recently. Can't wait to come back. Wants to come lead worship again. See what I'm saying? That's how a shepherd leads sheep. When that's not the case, and this has happened to some of you, you end up hurt, you end up confused. And I'm just asking you, if you ever get to shepherd here, do not bail on the sheep. And I'm asking God for the grace, should something happen here to me, that I would lead in a way that would be honoring and care for sheep. Just so you know, I have no plans. Just so you know, I have no plans. A third thing we see about this passage is our human love only cares about ourselves. I don't know if you saw that in this passage, but in verse 13, it says, the man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for his sheep. And so when you make those kind of decisions where you're just bailing, it's because you're making it primarily about you. If I've made decisions here, I just want to tell you, if I've made decisions, and somehow through the elder board have ever made a decision here that caused any of you any pain or any hurt, unbeknownst to me, because no, that would not be my desire, I want to ask your forgiveness. And if I've done that, I promise you, if I've done it and I haven't met with you, it's because I'm unaware. And I would ask you to meet with me so I could have that conversation and own it. Because that is not our intent here. Our intent is to lead and to guide, to shepherd, and provide a deep, authentic level of love to the sheep. That's what shepherds do. And that love comes from Christ. That's what you do, because that love comes from Christ. That's what we do, because that love comes from Christ. It's a different kind of love. It doesn't have limits. Over my 30 years, as I said, I've seen this play out over and over in friendships, marriages, all kinds of relationships. And when I've seen people not press into Christ, I can't tell you the amount of this devastation that I have witnessed in family units and with friends. I mean, it's horrific. But I can tell you this morning, miracle after miracle after miracle. Literally, miracle after miracle after miracle of people who chose purposely, intentionally, to press into his love and let his love flow through them in some of the most difficult circumstances, some of the most trying and pressure cooker type life situations have walked through with such God-honoring love. It is possible through Christ, church. It's possible. This is how this section wraps up. It takes us back to Jesus, whose love has no limits. He says, I'm the good shepherd. I know my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them in also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. And I love that. One flock and one shepherd. You've heard me say it over and over again. Stillwater's not my church. And it's not your church. It's not even our church. It's his church. His church. Jesus goes on to say, I have other sheep. They're not in this sheep pen. I'll bring them in. They too will listen to my voice. There will be one flock, one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I lay it down on my own accord. I have the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up. This command I received from my Father. I want to close with this point. There have been many people who have given their life for a cause. Think about it. ISIS members strap bombs around themselves and run into crowds to blow themselves up for a cause. There are people who have run into schools and have shot innocent children for a cause. I watched a documentary with my family this last week about David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. And he died for a cause. You know, none of those people who laid down their life were able to take it up again. And Jesus is setting himself apart. He says, I am the good, the shepherd, the good, the shepherd, the good shepherd. There's none like me. I lay my life down and I take it up again. You know, when he was resurrected, he didn't only die, wasn't only buried, but he was resurrected on the third day. And what he did, he conquered Satan and hell and sin and death. And he brought life. And all those human limits that existed, he poured out his love into your heart so that now you can live out the limitless love of your God. It's what you have in you. It's recorded for us in 1 John 3. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possession and sees his brother in need, but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with action and in truth. This then is how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. Whenever our hearts condemn us, for God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from him anything we ask because we obey his commands and we do what pleases him. This is the command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he's commanded us. Those who obey his commands live in him and he in them. And this is how we know that he lives in us. We know it by the Spirit he gave us. May God challenge you to not live out of your human limited love, but to allow the God who loves you so much he gave Jesus to die for you, to let that love be lived through you, no matter who it is, and where it is, and what they've done to you. You have the capacity to love like your Creator. You have the capacity to love like the one who hung on the cross for you, named Jesus Christ. And if you're here this morning and you don't know him, you're outside a relationship with God because you've never placed your faith and trust in Jesus, would you come up here and have a conversation with me? I want to share with you how you can invite Jesus into your life and be saved. Church family, can I have you stand? We're going to pray. Lord, we love you. Help us to love like you love. Not out of our human limits, but out of that God Spirit-given love. A love without limits. Demonstrated in your Son, Jesus. We ask this in his name.
Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. to redemption by the grace of His eyes. His grace is deep and ocean near all sea. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss. My heart turns violently inside my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Yeah, He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Yeah, thank you, God, that your love, God, it knows no limits. It knows no ends, Lord Jesus. Oh, we are thankful, Lord. We are thankful people, God. You're the great shepherd, the great I am, the one who never leaves us, never forsakes us, the one who leaves the 99. God, it comes after us. This week, Lord, as we're living our daily lives, God, I just pray, Lord, that you would just meet us there. Yeah, meet us there, Lord Jesus, in that place. In Jesus' name, I say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause His face to shine down upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up the light of His countenance upon you every single moment and give you His great peace. In Jesus' name, amen. We love you guys. Be blessed.